Hi, Mark. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself, how you got to where you are today, and a bit about the 50/50?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in central Pennsylvania, and after college and working in bars and nightclubs for about 5 years, I moved to Chicago in '98. I've been in restaurant and bar operations ever since then. So the past 30 plus years, been in operations. I've done everything from bar backing and serving to managing, and now in some executive multi-unit roles in the last 10 years. I joined the 50/50 group about 5 years ago, coincidentally about 6 months before the pandemic happened. So I was just hitting my stride when things went crazy.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And so, we were in growth mode then, and obviously slowed down a little bit during the last couple of years, and now we're back to growth mode. We're opening 3 or 4 places in the next 6 months or so, and a bunch more after that. So it's an exciting time for us.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I mean, like a couple of new locations as well coming up is like, I mean, it must be backs to the wall there almost trying to get all these things. Are they all in Illinois or whereabouts are you launching all these new like locations?
Actually, the next three are all in 3 different states: one in Illinois, one in Indiana, one in New York. The one in Illinois is our third. It is a hybrid bakery/cannabis dispensary, which is a
Nice.
really interesting concept to run. We are taking on the reopening of a pretty venerable craft beer tap room in Munster, Indiana. That'll
Okay.
be in the spring, and then in about 2 weeks here in February, we'll be opening up Second City Theater's first location in New York in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
And I will be very excited to go as we were joking just before we came on the air here as well. Very, very excited for that. I guess like, thinking about like sort of like, I suppose diving into running operations and like you're obviously today calling me from New York and you're based full time, you live in Chicago, is that correct?
Yeah.
So obviously you're kind of like at the very nth degree of launching Second City now in New York City. Like, do you have like particular teams that do like new store openings, or is it like are you like the traveling around the country trying to corral groups from builders to employees? Tell me about the process there.
Well, yeah, it's not quite that sexy, but yes, we have teams. We've got a couple of different groups, marketing, operations, food and beverage. So everybody goes to openings kind of in different shifts, and sometimes we're all together, and sometimes it's just one of us. But it's really just kind of at this point, it's a well orchestrated thing for us. We've got our checklist that we start writing down 12 months out. Everybody kind of knows what their role is, and then one of us is generally a project manager for each one of the openings. And so I've got this one in New York right now, and my partner Chris has the one in Indiana. My partner John has one in Evanston, Illinois. So
Yeah.
it's become somewhat systematic for us, although I can assure you that restaurant openings never are. But we've dialed it in, I think, as best we can, so that it's a relatively formulaic process for us at this point.
Totally. And I think it's interesting as well that like, when you say like you dialed in that process and you've kind of got it as formulaic as you can, that like all of your concepts are all kind of different as well. So it's like, some are like, I was just like, when I was like looking at on before I came up, like you've got the bunny slope, which is like not the same as the Utopian tailgate, which is not the same as the bakery, which is not the same as 90th Meridian. You know what I mean? Like you have loads of different concepts. So, I mean, I guess like, it's like almost like going into Narnia every time you launch a new place, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, no one's ever going to accuse us of making things easy on ourselves in terms of the concepts that we roll out.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is that it's a lot more dynamic and fun when you've got something new every time. I've worked in groups where it's the same concept one after the other, and it's certainly easier to do things that way. But there's a certain energy that you get when you're creating a brand new concept with a new menu and new atmosphere. New beverages. It's more unique, and it's definitely more challenging because it's not
Yeah.
cookie cutter. But it's, it's kind of the path we chose, and we like having that diversity of concepts in our group.
That's cool.
And it certainly keeps things fresh as an operator to be able to walk into different concepts and see and evaluate different things.
And totally. And I guess, you were mentioning your challenges there as well. Like, I mean, like in your role now, like, I mean, what sort of challenges, what do you see as sort of the largest challenges facing you? You've got four new stores, sorry, I should say four new, like restaurants, for the concepts, because are they all restaurants? Like, you got Second City, which is a comedy club, I guess. But like, for the concepts, is that the way we'll call it?
Yeah, we can call them concepts. One is a tap room, one is a comedy theater, one is a bakery/cannabis dispensary.
Yeah.
So we're literally all over the place with this stuff, but enjoying it. In terms of challenges ahead for us specifically as a group, it's growth outside of just Chicago. We've always been either Chicago neighborhoods or downtown Chicago, and we've had this on the roadmap for a long time to be able to expand at a rate that we feel is comfortable for us outside of Chicago proper, and we're doing that now.
Yeah.
With regard to more general challenges ahead of us, the labor market really, everywhere, but specifically in Chicago, we've got some new laws and regulations coming out that are going to eliminate the tip credit, which is a major change for everybody coming up this summer, or it'll be phased in over 5 years. But so that's something that's really been on our radar. How are we going to operate with what everybody knows are pretty razor thin margins in the hospitality business? How do we figure out a way to operate, to still be profitable, and to still have happy employees who love coming to work with us?
Do you know, it's interesting. I actually didn't know about that. Sorry, I literally wrote it down, that the tip credit rather. And it's interesting because I had somebody on in December, because the FAST Act in California came in, which was their like minimum wage law that came in. And it seems to I feel like there's a lot of like regulatory impact happening in the hospitality space, just as we're coming out of COVID, when I feel like that rebound has kind of happened. Like, you see, like, is that something that you're noticing, or is it just like, that's a Chicago specific kind of law, or is that going to be like Illinois, or is that like, what's your kind of sense on it?
Currently it's Chicago specific, and there are some other municipalities that have enacted this as well. This largely was brought on by a new mayoral administration. One of the things that they ran on this administration was to eliminate the tip credit. And whether you're for or against it, we want to get the best outcome for our businesses and for our employees. And so this has been, it's been a major point of conversation for us. And how do we navigate this, which is, it will be the new normal, but it's something that none of us have ever dealt with, is running a profitable hospitality business in which everyone makes a non-tipped minimum wage. And so we're figuring it out. We've got what we think are some good ideas that are going to involve a little bit different labor model and some technology, which we're testing and vetting right now. So we'll see what the future holds, but we feel like, as professional operators, we should be able to operate in any condition. And, this is, while this is a road bump for us, I think in the end, it'll work out for the best for us and for our employees, as long as we handle it with care.
I would agree. And I think that's the right sentiment to have to it. I mean, ultimately, like, it's not just you in Chicago that's going to go through this as well. It's like for everyone sort of like challenge to kind of overcome. But like, ultimately, like at the end of the day, your employees will be getting paid slightly more. So like, I mean, in that sense, like it kind of now kind of focuses on how do you like optimize sort of your programs for keeping the staff that you have probably like super happy, I would imagine. It's like, are you guys doing like, one thing I've definitely heard from like lots and lots of different operators is like, I would imagine say like just post-COVID alone, there's been almost like a cultural reset in terms of like how employees are being viewed, like hourly workers in particular. So like, obviously there's the regulatory side of this where we see in California and in Chicago that there's like, we need to like pay people more, like from a legal, like a regulatory perspective. But I hear like, as in, because you talk about like, say like labor being hard, that like, you know, what I hear is that like it's like finding quality employees to come into the restaurant is like very difficult, or into the business is very difficult. And so the good ones that you have, keeping them, that sort of retention side of things is like almost like paramount to the running of a successful organization now. And I hear lots of different operators talk about like sort of like the benefits that they do and sort of the kind of clever or interesting kind of ways they do to kind of like maintain the staff. Like, are you guys running any sort of interesting programs, or like have any sort of like, you know, benefits, so to speak, that you're like willing to share, or like, you know, shout about to?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've been offering, health benefits to
Yeah.
full-time employees, even hourly employees, since the day we opened 15 years ago, 16 years ago. And for us, there isn't really a gimmick to it. We're running
Yeah.
some kind of promotion to keep people. One of our core values is dedicated to each other. And as long as, it's kind of like a diet. If you eat right all the time, you can maintain,
Wouldn't know anything about it.
Me either. No, but if you eat right all the time versus going on a diet here and there, it's probably more healthy for you. Whereas, if we're taking care of each other all the time, rather than, trying to find the next fad to keep or retain employees, we feel like that's just part of our culture. And there are a
Yeah.
lot of benefits that we offer, good benefits. And we've got a lot of people that have been in our company, a very long time, at, whether it's management or hourly positions. I like to think that we're a good employer, and our employees like working with us. I do want to go back to one thing you said, which is, paying our people more based on, the change in the tip credit. And while that may be true on the surface, where, a server right now might be making $9 and change an hour plus tips, and, within 5 years, they'll be making $20 an hour, but without tips, they may or may not be making more money.
Yeah.
The way that we've looked at this is that it's not necessarily a positive change. I understand, what the mayoral administration is looking at on the surface level, but when you really dig deep, we'll probably have people that can make more money, but we'll have a lot less people, and that's just the way it's going to work. If wages are going to go up
Interesting.
significantly, we have to find a way to balance that with, if you're making 1 to 5% on the bottom line right now, and wages
Yeah.
are going up 50 or 60%, it's pretty simple math that you got to figure out how to run a profitable business in order to keep employing people.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're figuring out. So yes, this was sold on its face value as everyone's going to make more, but there'll just be less of everyone.
Interesting. And you think, so if I'm hearing you, like you're saying that basically like the incentive for business in the future to employ lots of people, it's like there's less of an incentive effectively because the margins are so thin in running a restaurant business in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you're making a small percentage on the bottom line and one of your expenses, whether it's labor or anything else, goes up significantly, you have to figure out a way to balance that. And in order to employ everyone, we need to run profitable businesses. So,
Yeah.
there's a trade-off to raising the wages, and that is we're going to have to figure out somewhere else to find that in our expenses and reduce that, whether it's body counts, personnel, or some other thing. And I don't think we want to sacrifice, buying toilet paper.
That also would fit. That would also be a funny sketch, I guess, on Second City. I feel like we're writing sketches here. Dark sketches. Tell me, I mean, I guess not really switching gears, but like, that's obviously something that's going to come in the future, and, insulate and prepare now for that eventuality. And that's fair. I guess in terms of, like you were saying, like testing different technology, and you have loads of different concepts, how do you kind of think about like testing sort of new restaurant technology, be it like guest facing technology or like operational technology, when a lot of the kind of concepts are quite different from each other?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, the concepts that largely revolve around the food, the beverage, and the atmosphere, right? There are, certain other things that play into it, but those are the three major factors in a concept for us. Everything else can largely be systemized and standardized. And, we like to we like to fall back to our systems, and those systems can work in whatever concept that we have. The cannabis being the one outlier there, because it's a retail model versus a service model in restaurants and
Yeah.
bars. So it's different, and we're learning that, and learning a lot about it, as a matter of fact. But in terms of systems and technology, we approach it we try to understand what we're looking to get out of it. I've said this many times, there are a million platforms out there with a million bells and whistles, and it's easy to go down rabbit holes and get excited about one technology versus the next one. And what we generally try to do is we say, what are we looking to get out of this? How long, do we think we can be on this one platform? Because there's a lift to getting these things off the ground and getting buy-in from the people in the company. But with regard to, just basic systems, our kind of core systems work for any concept that we have.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. And I mean, I guess like that's the thing, like I hear this time and again, and I mean, even from my own kind of like, no tool is going to come to me in marketing and like make me better at marketing per se. You know what I mean? Like, as in, like, I guess like the knowledge and expertise is augmented by the technology, as opposed to, and I don't want to say that I've got loads of knowledge and expertise, but what I mean is like, maybe you have the knowledge and expertise, but very much like in the sense that like ultimately it's not something that like it augments my ability as opposed to makes the ability happen in and of itself. And I kind of hear you saying that as well about that in a restaurant. I guess like I'm always curious because you said you joined like 5 months before COVID, and the COVID thing, obviously I feel like just interests me because I feel like we're kind of, I guess we're at the other side now. I mean, it could be a new wave, who knows? And it's like, what I kind of feel is that like, it kind of hardened everybody in a way that it's like you survived, and it's like business is still there, and it kind of reset culture for a lot of people. But it also had like tremendous impact on restaurants in terms of like the technology, in terms of like, I mean, I presume you guys had a sea change. I'd love to hear about it in the sense that like I had somebody come on and they said that before COVID, 30% of their business was digital and 70% was in store, and now it's 70% digital and 30% in store. And so obviously for an in-store restaurant, that's a fundamental change in how they even have an operation in the first place in the guest experience. And obviously I don't think yours has obviously flipped that much, but I'd be curious to hear, what impact sort of COVID had and how the operation of the sort of group kind of changed, so to speak.
Yeah, as it relates to technology and when we had to shut down our dining rooms, luckily for us, we have a leadership group and an ownership group that was pretty heavily invested in technology prior to the pandemic, because we had a successful chain of pizza places that largely rely on delivery. We were able to pivot pretty seamlessly into whether it was carry out, curbside service, or delivery. We had our own delivery driver fleet at the time. Plus, we were working with our third-party partners for delivery. And so for us, it was the biggest challenge for us was that losing our dining room business, specifically in our pizza places, the Roots Pizza chain, our delivery business went up like 500%. It was insane.
Oh yeah,
so
like that's
the challenge for us was just to fulfill all the orders that were coming in. And in the very beginning, it was a very steep learning curve for us. So you can imagine, we had furloughed quite a few of our hourly employees. So we had our kitchen staffs and our management team and our corporate team, and it was basically all hands on deck, packing pizzas and delivering and cooking. And it was kind of a cool time for us because those of us that maybe aren't working on the floor every day anymore, we got right back into the kitchen or the front of house and just banged out orders together for a couple of months. And at the same time, we were launching two kind of big charitable projects where we were basically producing food based on monetary donations and giving it out for free. And I think we did about 80,000 free meals in the first 6 months of COVID. So that was something that kept us busy and passionate and dedicated to, to our craft.
That's amazing. And, like what I kind of hear, I mean, I kind of invite only successful people on the podcast. So what I say is what I hear from your successful peers is that, the companies that have thrived and are coming out and that are launching new concepts, like now, like you got like a number coming out now over the next few months, is like, it almost seems to me like the culture of the organization is kind of what, make it the man, so to speak, in the sense that like, I had somebody on and they were talking about like, they had 200 locations, which is obviously successful, but it was like, he was like, we have a restaurant and an arcade together and it's like not patentable. He's like, anybody can just copy this tomorrow, like some sports screens and whatever. But he's like, the difference is kind of the culture. And a lot of it is like, and we've had enormous success since COVID because we were able to keep basically as many people as we could. And there's almost like a gratitude and a kind of in it together kind of vibe of everybody who kind of came out of that storm. And it sounds to me like when you're in the kitchen and were you slinging some dough or were you like packing boxes? Do you know what I mean? When you're in there with everybody, just like, I mean, it was just a dark kind of period. I mean, it was kind of like, is this the rest of our life now? Do you know what I mean? Versus like you're 6 months in and to be able to do like 80,000 meals or 80,000 plus meals, like for charity. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, like more power to you guys. I guess like, I would say like one of my kind of last questions on this topic, because I mean, I guess it's like traumatic for everybody is, I feel like I'm opening wounds for everybody on this podcast. It's like, a lot of, one of the things I hear is a lot of people like, there's like a lack of general managers across the board. And it doesn't really matter what city you're in, there's a metro area, big or small, that there's like a dearth of managerial, general manager quality people available, readily available. And I posit that it's like a lot of it is to like, a whole class of people never graduated, so to speak, during COVID because they were kind of closed on off for, openings, reopenings. And it was kind of like, there just wasn't the people to graduate into the ranks that we would expect there to be today. Like when you think about like sort of like the running of all of the different sort of concepts that you have, is like the GM, like would you say you on the spectrum of like, it's a big problem to, it's not a problem at all? Like where in sort of that spectrum is like kind of finding sort of like GM grade potential?
I would imagine that we find ourselves in a similar position as a lot of other restaurateurs, which is the last couple of years, it was difficult to source talent, especially at that level. And the GMs at our stores really have a lot of accountability and a lot of autonomy. And so not only do we need, GM level people, but we need entrepreneur level people to run our stores. That said, we made the decision quite some time ago to develop from within. And that's not to say that we haven't hired some general managers from outside the company. We certainly have. But our goal is to really be developing at every level, sort of like a farm team in baseball. We want to, hire people. We've got, I have people that started as a server that are now, a general manager or an assistant general manager. We have people that started years ago as a manager, and one person I'm thinking of, she runs our biggest property now as general manager, and she started 7 or 8 years ago for us as a junior manager. And so our goal, another one of our core values is learn, do, teach. When you're in that management position or even an hourly position, if you're learning and you're doing it for a while, and you should be able to teach it at some point to the next person behind you so that you can move up. That's kind of our philosophy is, you master the system, you teach it to the next person, they take your spot and you move up. And we've had some really good luck with that, with our general managers and our assistant general managers. I think the talent pool is a little bit different than it used to be, but as long as we're hiring people and developing them and caring for them, as they come along in their career, it shouldn't be a huge concern for us, because we've got those people. And I'd always rather hire somebody who is a known commodity to us at the AGM level or the manager level, than take a risk by going outside the company.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that a lot from people. And that goes back to the point I was talking about earlier about like sort of the retention. and like keeping the existing staff you have and just providing pathways for them for maturation, you know, helping kind of groom them for sort of like more senior roles within the organization. And I find like, you know, like you're saying there, you know, like, you know, being you guys do that and want to promote from within. And so like, I feel like I hear that from like the best run organizations like yourself are very much putting those kinds of processes in place to offset the need to kind of go outside the organization to find that kind of talent and fill those gaps. Not to say that you can't do that, and there's not to say that people can't, but I totally hear you when you say that. So Mark, I guess as well, you know, like I suppose we're coming up in time, and so if like a peer of yours was listening and actually got this far listening to us, you know, first and foremost, somebody actually listened to the whole. I don't believe anybody finished this podcast, but if they did get this far, what would be the kind of takeaway if somebody was like, you know, another director of operations had another group or another franchise or an hotel? Like, what would be kind of your sort of words of wisdom that you would espouse?
That's a great question. You know, I often don't feel like I'm yet in the place to offer words of wisdom, although
You are, man.
I guess some people listen to me. You know, I try and think of like the words of wisdom that I got along the way from my mentors. And, you know, one of the quotes that somebody told me a long time ago that stuck with me is, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I think, you know, in terms of gaining knowledge, I think learning your craft is amazing. And I'm constantly reading and, you know, trying to learn new things. But really none of that matters. If you're trying to build a successful culture, really none of that matters unless the people who are, you know, upholding your culture know you care about them and they care about each other. And so for me, that's paramount, is, you know, just truly caring about the people that you work with, that work for you, that you work for. It kind of goes up and down the line. I think that's, you know, it's kind of bedrock for a successful organization, at least one that I want to be in.
Oh man, that's so great. So great to finish with that. And it's, you know, I'm glad it ended with culture. Do you know what I mean? And like it all starts there. And delighted to have you on, Mark. Don't hang up, but I'm gonna pause the recording. But I'm delighted, and thanks so much, man, for coming on. I really appreciate it.